Hello, hello, honeys, and welcome to our final pinup of 2024. You might remember that this is our most personal style of episode, and so in this episode, as in personal pinups past, I'll be taking a few objects from my own hand-curated art wall that's been in progress for nearly 7 years now, and I'll tell you the story behind them, where I got that little piece of art, what it reminds me of, any special details about the artist. Obviously, the sources for this style of episode are my memories, so let's go ahead and begin. The first piece we'll be talking about today is one that I simply like to call my seed hawk. It's a mid-sized photographic print, but how it was made is the cool part behind it. The artist used exclusively natural materials like found feathers, leaves, stones, seeds to create the physical outline, the wing details, the beak, etc. of a hawk. She added some little decorative elements around the corners as well. The resulting image is the one that I have. I bought this work in the summer of 2022, my last summer really at my childhood home in the Chicago suburbs. As you can imagine, that was a pretty emotional time for me, having the sense that I was really, truly leaving home. Because prior in college and even for the year or two, whatever after, I had had that opportunity to go back by my parents still living there. So now it felt a whole lot more final. Anyways, though, the three of us, my grandma, my mom, and myself, after spending the day at Starved Rock State Park, I believe actually my parents' dog Bailey was with us as well, stopped in the town of North Utica, just across the Illinois River from the park. We noticed a little farmer's market, art fair deal going on there on our drive-in, and so on the way back out, we decided to see if there was anything that caught our eyes. Not only did I walk away with my photographic print, my mom also bought this really cool, jack-o'-lantern, metal jack-o'-lantern made out of an old gas can. And it's always a big winning day, in my opinion, when the majority of your group walks away from an art fair having found something they love. I appreciated the opportunity to have the day with not only my grandma and my mom doing outdoor stuff that we all like to do together, having a picnic, but also the chance to engage with them and art a little bit more as they were very excited to see me excited. It meant a lot to be able to gush over technique and design with them for a little while. The Seed Hawk is a great reminder of this place that I have loved for a long time. After all, I spent my senior ditch day goofing around Starved Rock State Park, taking dips in the waterfalls, doing the scenic long trails, and packing picnics with my friends. I'd also been there at the end of high school with some coworkers who'd become friends. One of them, Shannon, knew she'd be moving away soon, and so she made a point to really take her time and go slow on the trails. And she's in the back of the group, and at one point, I turn around from the head of the group and said, what are you staring at us all like that for? Because she had stopped for a minute. And she pointed out that we had passed by several trees in the middle of the road, and none of us four, I think it was, ever took the same path around twice. We'd go left, left, or right, left, or something like that. And she said, but no matter how much we split up, we always come back together. And I think that's exactly the analogy I needed for life right now. And that idea has always sort of stuck with me that yes, sometimes there are forks, trees in the road, but there is a way in which our paths bring us back together with the people we're supposed to be around. Starved Rock is also a place that we've taken many family hikes. First, in the early days of my youth, with my mom, my younger brother, and our family dog at the time, Lexi. Those were always really special days because we would, for example, in the winter, go and try and spot the eagle nests out on the ice of the river. In the summer, I was a big fan of the mud. But I remember that sense of specialness, the three, I guess technically four of us being together. I remember even wanting to fight less, which if you knew my brother and I then, that would be a real shocker. That's not to say we still didn't fight or get into a little trouble. Starved Rock is really known for these big limestone features, almost canyons kind of formed at the river's edge. In the walls of these formations, there were these natural alcoves. And the first time that my dad came on a family hike with us to Starved Rock, I decided I wanted to go up into one, look down at the waterfall below, tuck up into the rocks, kind of mountain goat style. I chose the right moment to scramble up there. Ben, however, did not. He started making his way up just as a park ranger came around the corner, the entrance to our particular little canyon, and she yelled at him. She reamed him out. And my mom very quickly, very subtly, but very firmly gave me a look to hide my ass deeper into that alcove, and I did. All the while, my dad is backing away slowly into the crowd, pretending he does not know those heathen children. Ben took the verbal barrage in silence, and when the ranger was gone, I came back down, and I never climbed a wall like that again. I'd never do such a thing again because it's so damaging to those natural formations, but at the time, it was pretty darn funny. Our next object is a postcard from the Natural History Museum. The image on it is an Easter Island head. This is a memento from one of many great New York City experiences from the summer I lived there. Ones like walking through Central Park, going to various restaurants, including Jacob's Pickles, which has really good Southern food, good vibes, and also, of course, delicious pickles. I was also able to go to a comedy club show and a rooftop bar with an Empire State Building view. The summer of 2021 was not a perfect one for me. There were some bumps in the road, but we always want to prioritize remembering the good times. Of course, as soon as I say Natural History Museum and Easter Island Head, my brain at least goes straight to the movie Night at the Museum. So let's talk about the connections there. Night at the Museum was always one of my favorites growing up because it felt like it really captured the magic and the knowledge of life that I felt like I was connecting to as a kid going through these museums long before I ever had the words to describe how much it meant to me. As an adult, I really appreciate the quality of the cinematography, the plot, the acting, the fact that there's such a great POC casting for POC roles, as well as the humor. And I mean, it just stands the test of time. It's a great movie. So with these incredibly fond memories, I had a lot of expectations going into my first experience in the actual museum. And here's what I learned firsthand. The Natural History Museum definitely does not look like that inside the main entry in real life. Instead, there's a large rectangular space for ticket purchase and entry just within the doors. It has the most vaulted ceiling ever. Like at least 3 stories high. Once you stand in line there and get your ticket and pass through into the main lobby, there's a much shorter ceiling and it's lots of stairways with hallways branching. So real night and day difference in appearance between the film and real life. As for where the movie got its inspiration from, I'm pretty sure they based that on the Field Museum of Chicago, because the Field Museum has almost the exact same 2-floor, open to a courtyard below style of lobby. The Field Museum also very famously, in said lobby, has a T-Rex skeleton. But I mean, who could blame them if they picked the Field Museum? The best inspiration is the best inspiration after all. Regardless, myself and my fellow museum exploring buddy spent the entire day there, and there's just something about history appreciation with someone who gets it and or you. It was fun to completely geek out harder in some sections than others, to make jokes at times with each other, to discuss what we liked or would do differently about these exhibitions during our museum trip and even after it. It was a great day of being able to intellectually engage with each other. Next up, we have a small print of the Split Rock Lighthouse up in Minnesota. This one comes from travels I did this summer of 2024 to both Wisconsin and Minnesota. That about week of vacation right around the 4th of July was awesome because it was time in the lands of lakes and trees, and it was time with multiple family members. The trip provided me with that real sense I needed at that point of being home, not only on the lake, but wherever my family is. There was lots of cool stuff I did across that week. For example, taking hikes out to see waterfalls, visiting small towns. We spent a whole day playing card games. There was also a morning I got up, was feeling particularly active, and so swam part of a lake. Just hopped in and took to it. No life jacket or anything. Of course, I had my family watching in case they needed to intervene because of a boat or something, but still a pretty big challenge, but one I really enjoyed. I also appreciated the opportunity to see what my younger brother's life is like now. He's been at grad school up in Duluth for about 2 years now, so it was overdue, really, to see his apartment, the town he lives in, with its really cool mall and kind of the neighboring towns everywhere that had their own charms. I also appreciated the chance to see what he does for a living as a fluvial geomorphologist. He took us to some of his research sites so that he could talk about what he knows via these rock, stream, and lake formations based on not only his personal study, but also knowledge gained from his broader upper education and point things out to us, and we could actually literally see what he was talking about. It was sweet to have that time dedicated to being together, learning together, playing together via the card games and stuff. I'd only met his girlfriend once, so it was also sweet to get to spend some time with her. Next up, we have a watercolor of a lamppost with some Mardi Gras beads around it, of course coming from NOLA, or for those who haven't been there before, New Orleans. I was out there in mid-April of 2021, and I really loved that trip for the most part. There's a sense of maybe not slowness, but of savoring life, of taking one's time that seems inherent to the town, and that was a nice literal change of pace during my very busy working gap year. The city also felt very artsy, very classy, though that may have come from the architectural styles, the amount of gardens, and the general fact of music floating in the air everywhere you went. The city had a sense of positivity in most of the neighborhoods that was quite infectious. And because I know you're wondering, yes, Bourbon Street is gross, but we also got a couple of free drinks, so, pros and cons. When it comes to the food, forget about it. Very little comes close to New Orleans. Myself and my travel companion noticed that the tours and activities were especially freaking cool here. One of the jazz history tours got us through the entire city and gave us the opportunity to dance in/with the public in the historic Congo Square. We stopped in at a long-standing cigar shop as well, which isn't really my scene, but, when in NOLA. I tried exactly twice to do the proper puff thing on this cigar and could not for the life of me understand it, so I gave up very quickly. But the most unique and fascinating thing about this town is its inherent blends of historic and contemporary. We chose to go on a ghost tour one evening and heard about the vampire women myth of New Orleans that was super fascinating. Spoiler alert, it had a whole lot to do with diseases of the day and not actually vampires. But it stuck with me that our guide, whose name I can't remember, said that the city is short-term and river-dependent as a fact of life. She said, as we were stopped at least 10 blocks from the river existed here where we're standing now at one point, and it will again. She said it's entirely possible for New Orleans to not exist in 100 years. But then she surprised me by saying that many Orleanians are genuinely okay with that. I wonder if it's because they want the river to continue to evolve, just as the city will continue to evolve. In any case, a really wonderful trip. And our final object for today, honeys, my 2019 Lollapalooza pass. The first time I went was with 2 friends. Sarah and I took the Metro train in while she painted flower vines up my legs. We stopped and got a little breakfast snack between Ogilvy and Grant Park. We then met our other friend Josh and started hopping around between the various sets. At one point during the day, Sarah dumped red glitter all over my chest, not realizing that the lid was unscrewed on it when the bottle was passed between the various crowd members to her, so I was very sparkly for the remainder of the day. The 3 of us enjoyed running around at night, especially to try and maximize our ending experience, to maybe see both closers at once. The Metro ride home was super packed, and we got into some very odd yet hilarious conversations with other riders. Aside from the fond personal memories, there's of course the musical ones. So here are my personal best in show from that year. First, Zara Larsson. Her choreography was amazing. It was fun to try and dance along to. Her singing was good, and she had major star power energy to her. Vance Joy was exceptional. His singing was perfect. His band was perfect. He was a big crowd uniter. And then, of course, you have Chance the Rapper, whose star power was just off the charts. He had a lot of crowd interaction going, and his lighting effects were memorably cool. I did go back to Lollapalooza a second time in 2021, this time with my friend Carly. And I have to say right off the bat that there were some big improvements made. There were probably literally a dozen more, as well as free water refill stations. There were more shade tents. It felt more spacious in some ways. So all in all, the 2021 version felt a little more low-key, a little more safe. Carly and I started off the day easy, then quickly headed to the EDM stage, where she was at first a little scared by the intensity of the bass, which, having been shocked by it my first time at the EDM stage of Lolla, I completely understand. But the mood was uplifted by a golden retriever, I'm assuming some sort of service dog, who was the life of the party. As we continued about the day, we pretty easily agreed on the next show to go to, which made life so much easier. And it was also great that we could enjoy almost everyone we saw. There was no bad stage presences. And at the end of the night, I was able to cross something off of my Chicago list that had been on there for far too long. I finally got to ride the L. And so to wrap up this story, the 2021 Best in Show, in my opinion. First, and definitely at the top, the band Camino, who was just incredible on their instruments and had great voices. They clearly had fun with and trust in each other, and they played a compelling range of their discography, everything from the slow to the fast to the a little bit in between. By the time they closed their set, they were one of my new favorites and still are to this day. Another standout was Bea Miller, who had a great voice, that same sort of star power energy, and lots of crowd interaction. And finally, I have to shout out J Balvin, whose strong showmanship featured a lot of dancers, set pieces, various lighting and musical effects. He was exceptionally good at the crowd hype up and interaction piece, successfully encouraging the crowd to dance along. All right, honeys, there is your December pinup, the final personal pinup of 2024. Hope you've enjoyed this walk down memory lane with me and the little bits of art discussion along the way. Take care of yourselves, and we will talk again soon with our upcoming business. This podcast is produced, created, hosted, formerly edited, and fact-checked by master's degree holder Celia Bugnout. Chris Meinhold is responsible for our editing, mixing, and our intro and outro music. Special thanks to him for that. And as always, remember to like, subscribe, share, comment, so on all your favorite listening as well as social media channels.